So, the topic which hinges on this single word can be fairly daunting for that very reason. However, let me first of all walk you through the sort of next 40 minutes, the roadmap as it were, would be why this topic was chosen and its importance. We'll attempt to translate this word, which is in Pali, and also define what is meant by this in the Buddhist parlance. And of course, then we go on to dangers, because doubt is a very dangerous thing. And certainly for the path of, the path to follow towards Nibbana, or for that matter, just to become even virtuous, doubt is a big hindrance. So we talk about the dangers and then how we should overcome and get rid of Vicikicca, which is what the Buddha has taught, and that is what has to be done. So with that, let me also, of course, in the process, we would also be looking at the connection between Vicikicca, doubt, and Ehipassiko, where the Buddha invites investigation. We'll also look at what is skeptical doubt, and there are other types of doubt. So let us discuss that. So my approach would be to keep it simple. And when we used to teach medical students, there was this method that I used, which was called the KISS method, keep it simple and stupid. But obviously on a Buddhist Dhamma forum like this, that's not the word to use or the approach to an erudite audience like you. So I have replaced that S with sutta. So it will be keeping it simple and based on the sutta. So let me at this point say that Abhidhamma will not be touched on, because I am neither competent nor do we have the time for that. But we'll stick to the suttas as references in what we are going to deliberate on. Now, with that, now this single word, Vicikicca, in translating, I need to say some precautionary words that many of you are anyway aware of. The inadequacy and how ineffectual English is in giving the correct essence of Pali words. Now this is well known. Some people would even say that English can't even touch the breadth and the depth that is embodied in the Buddha Vachana, some of them. Now for a very simple example, metta, which is one of the commonest and so widespread. We have just done some metta meditation guided by Olande Ananda Mahatero. Metta, there is no single word. And even by joining two words to say it's loving kindness, because it's not love and it's not kindness, let's put them together, even then it's far, far from the actuality of what this metta is, which is universal, which is unconditional, and so forth. So that's just an example, and this goes on with all other words, many other words, shall we say. One of the most beautiful words in the Pali language, in my view, is appamada. And those of us who know Sinhala, which is a language closer to Pali than English, can get certain meanings which are also not quite right. Appamada in Sinhala might mean, not to delay and to sort of be in a rush. It's not that. There should not be a sense of delay, but it means to be vigilant, to be diligent, and so forth. A lot more is embodied, and the words are pregnant with a lot more meaning. Anyhow, for the time being, Vicikicca in Sanskrit or Vicikicca in Pali is translated generally as skeptical doubt. Now, whether this is appropriate or not, we will, as we go on, I think we will have to consider. But that is the translation given. Now, of course, we have to use a language, and we are using the English language, which is in keeping with the objectives of the servants of the Buddha. And the Buddha has given permission in the Arana Vibhanga Sutta to use any language, to use one's own language with regard to the Dhamma, although the Theravada tradition means that Pali is the gold standard and the reference. So and of course, so we need the language because listening is something that the Buddha has very much advocated. Now, it is not an academic exercise, but it is one of the 3 practices recommended: listening, contemplating, and practice. In fact, so much so that the Buddha has even had suttas on listening and on listeners. In the Avikujja Sutta, he describes 3 types of listeners. One is like an inverted pot, where nothing really went in, nothing poured into that pot because it was kept upside down. The second is like a lap-like situation where it fell on the lap, it was understood, but when you stood up, it all rolled off, and that's it. It just left it there in the room, and it never went out of that room. When the person stood up, it all got tossed away. And the third, of course, is to retain and to contemplate, to think about this, and then practice. So it is what is called in Pali Sunata, Dhareta, where you contemplate and think about it, and then Chareta, practice. And what is more, these can give 3 types of knowledge, or even sometimes called 3 wisdoms. The Sutamaya Jnana by listening, so we need the language for this. And then, of course, by thinking, the Chintamaya Jnana and the Bhavanamaya Jnana. Now with that, so let us we have to use language and words, it so happens. So let us try to do that. And the general understanding, I know, is you are well aware. We had a wonderful talk last week on foes to the Patipada, or enemies to the path. It was very comprehensive, and also there was active participation and interest generated. I think Professor Kodita was quite right that why this particular topic was chosen as a follow-on was because there was a time constraint, and some of those questions, there wasn't time to resolve and answer some of those questions, although Bhante's answers were very clear and spot on, and I would agree, there wasn't enough time. So the opportunity arose by today's scheduled talk by Mrs. Anuja Vijayasekara. She was committed and wanting to deliver it even amongst many personal inconveniences, which arose due to unavoidable circumstances. However, I thought it was unfair to get her to do it, and at short notice, since it is not fair to call for a good speaker, I have stepped in. And I thought we will re-look, a closer look at Vicikicca. So now, if we look at the English dictionary, first of all, as to what doubt is, they would say it's the uncertainty about the truth or validity of a statement or teaching or whatever. And also an uncertainty about which course of action to take. Obviously, not a nice situation to be with, because you dare not start on anything, be it painting a picture or any sort of entering into any partnership or any project, if you are doubting the reality of things. Let aside learning a full philosophy or for a full deep learning, such as the Buddhist teachings. Now, then we look at how psychologists define doubt. Because you know that Buddhism is certainly the world of all world religions, the one that is closest and covers most or very, very closely akin to psychology. I mean, so that definition is that it's a mental state suspended between two contradictory propositions, two opposing ideas and thoughts. So you're suspended between these. And at an emotional level, it leads to indecision. Indecision, and you're sort of swinging between belief and disbelief. So naturally, it immediately stops one from making good progress. And if you think a little bit about this, if ever you're in doubt, not only are you not progressing, there is a certain discomfort, disquiet, restlessness, wondering which is it. So it is emotionally, it is, there's discomfiture. There's a gnawing restlessness. And what is more, it increases your self-view. If I were to be thinking that, if any of us were thinking, will I be accepted or will I be rejected? How will they look upon me? I keep thinking, and you keep closing in on yourself. Your self-view keep increasing. Rather than if you didn't doubt and you had trust, you will be more open and you will see the commonality and be more relaxed. So your self-view increasing also is not a very good thing to happen. And of course, the psychologists go into different types of doubt. For example, self-doubt. If we doubt, I think you feel that you're inadequate. That is not a very good thing, because you may not venture, you don't become venturesome, you may not, you sort of, your self-sabotage, they call it, by not doing anything. Because also, you may have a different type of self-doubt. You may think that I know it, but others may think that I'm overstepping my mark. That's called the imposter syndrome, that I am imposing myself in an area where really I am not meant to be. So there can be doubt about oneself. So that is where the psychologists, I think, when they have to give psychotherapy, that's one of their main areas. But there are many other types, which if time permits, and I think it will, I hope it will, at the very end, we'll discuss these different types. But you can see that doubt is a very negative emotion. We said that it causes emotional discomfort. More than that, and we said that you wouldn't, it becomes a non-starter, as it were. But when you look around, it can cause a lot of harm. Even on the world stage, if you look, even today, perhaps, doubt affects interrelationships. With the neighboring country, you doubt what is going to happen if they join an organization, so they end up in war. Or even more locally, maybe politicians, because they have doubt about each other, distrust, they can't get themselves together to come up with a plan. So doubt can be not a nice thing, and we have discussed personally what it can happen. So leaving all that as it were, without that, causing suffering, or it's a form of suffering, having doubt. And it feeds the self-view and your identity. But now let's get on to, of course, there is no place in the Buddhist teachings for negativity. That is also something I would like to highlight before we go on to the Buddhist definition of Vicikicca. There is no place for negativity in Buddhism. People who don't quite know what Buddhism is would say it is, it's more not doing things than doing, and that can be pessimistic. Not at all, because we are told that there's self-liberation. So that's not pessimism. I mean, you can't be more optimistic than that. You are taking it into your hands. Attahi attano nato, the help is within you, not anybody else. So it's a very, very positive. Then we have adhishtan or determination. It's one of the perfections, one of the paramis of the 10 paramis. Then virya or energy, to exert energy as you practice the Dhamma or learn the Dhamma, whichever those 3 practices, energy is needed, whether you're listening, so whether you have to put effort, vayamati. Then the Pali word is chittan paganna, as you know, to be motivated. So all these things have been specified. And the fact that you have to have self-confidence, in the Karaniya Metta Sutta, sakko is one of the first words, meaning in Sinhala it's like hakio, capable. You can, it's possible to spread, if you go on doing this, to give that type of loving kindness, as we heard. We were made to, guided by the Mahatero a little while ago. One can get there. That is what it means by sakko. So there's a lot of, and uttana sampada, meaning for worldly matters mostly, that is, but to put a lot of effort, but not only, even on the path, uttanavato satimato, your mindfulness, you have to put effort and mindfulness. So there is no place for negativity, we already have felt. Now let us look at what the Buddhist definition of vicikicca or doubt is. V is a prefix, which means sort of, it says no to what, it's, how can I say, devoid of. Vicikicca, and the second part of that word is like a remedy, and it's a mixture. As I said, now we can't use one English word, I'm sorry. They have used remedy plus knowledge, knowledge of a remedy. You don't have a knowledge of a remedy is vicikicca. So, and what it has been specified, it has been very clearly specified, specifically where the region. It's not just doubt in anything and everything, vicikicca. So in our discussions, we have to focus on, if we are talking about vicikicca, it's not just doubt in general, as this is why I spent a little time talking about all types of doubt. There are many more types of doubt if time permits. But vicikicca is spiritual doubt relating to the teachings. And in other words, the reality. And there are 8 areas that have been specified. With vicikicca is that one who has doubts regarding the teacher, the Buddha, doubts about the Dhamma, or the true teaching, the Sangha and the achievements of, when we say Sangha, doubt about Sangha, we are thinking of those Sangha who have achieved saintlyhood, and that such achievements and the effort in keeping the Dhamma through the oral tradition going. So all that contribution, if we don't believe in, then that is spiritual doubt, if we have doubts. Similarly, doubts about the 4 noble truths, doubts about cause and effect, that relationship. Dependent origination, which is of course deeper, the paticca samuppada, and whether there was a past, did I really live in the past? Who was I? What was I? Was that really so? Did that actually happen? Doubt. And will there be a future, another life? Is that really so? And things like this. So this area of doubt is what vicikicca means. Now, the dangers. It is very, very important. For one thing, doubt is something that is widespread, highly prevalent, almost ubiquitous. Everybody has some type of doubt. But to progress on the path, we heard Bhante Panyavamsa say that the number 1 enemy is vicikicca. Now you can understand with this definition why it is the number one enemy. You can't. Go ahead if you have doubt on the whole thing. Now, what then should we do? What's the step to get rid of this doubt? Now, because doubt is going to leave you confused and undecided, muddled up into minds, and so forth. And doubt will inhibit all learning. You can't proceed like this. In fact, regarding virya is not our topic today, that is energy, virya. There is in the Anga Sutta, it is said, Anga, they give 5 qualities, 5 Anga, I think. Anga is a word for like 5 aspects. The first is conviction in Buddha and his teachings. Is the first, if you are to be able to exert that energy and sustain that energy. Without conviction, you are not going to do this. So now, how come we do this? It is said that Buddhists believe because they know. That is correct. Buddhists are expected to believe because they know. It is not that Buddhists know because they believe. You know because you believe. That means you have placed your faith in something and you say, right, I have placed my faith, I believe. Therefore, I know that that will come right because I believe that that will come right. Because I know that such and such a force will help me. But here, you are convinced that you believe because you know. So how can we, but it is not blind faith. This is blind faith is totally discarded. Let us remember that the free inquiry is what the Buddha has always recommended. In fact, what is called the Kalama Sutta, for the people known as the Kalamas in an area in North India called Kesamutti, which they have identified. There is even a stupa there, which marks where Buddha delivered this, because it is considered the first charter on free inquiry in humans ever that we are aware of. It's on record. So free inquiry has to be there. So it is, how does one do this if one has no faith? Then one has to look around oneself. Maybe at Turkey or Syria or at yourself or at something, or in whatever happens. Look at illnesses, diseases. That is, Buddha says, come, I invite you to investigate. He invites investigation. The 6 characteristics of his Dhamma are that it was clearly enunciated. That is what is called Swakato. It is there, it's clearly enunciated. There are no hidden tricks or parables or anything like that for you to interpret. It's there. If at all, there are very clear similes. And then it is verifiable. So that is the next one. Swakato, whatever. It's Swakata and Sandittika. It is verifiable. And it is for all time. It doesn't change. It is relevant then and it's relevant now. There are no, for the 4 Noble Truths, there are no newer editions. Any other thing, theory, will be Einstein's theory there, and then there are newer editions with time. But here, this is it's for all time, and also it gives quick results also in time. So Akaliko, Ehi Pasiko invites investigation. And then Opanaiko, you have to apply to yourself. You don't need anything else. Opanaiko. And then Pachattam Veditabo is to each one's abilities and each one's situation. So it's like in the Sinhala thing, Tama Tama Nana Pama Nindana Gatayutu in Sinhala, where the recording, each one will get to that level of to which he can. There is a varying depths. So anyway, now, how does one do it? Ehi Paksiko, you have to investigate. We will put off how we do that and look at certain dangers of having this. Why do we have to learn to put off Vicikicca? Let's see why. Why? Because it is one of the 10 fetters holding us in samsara. holding us to this samsara where there is so much of suffering and uncertainty and doubt for that matter. We don't know what's going to happen next. And that can be a cause of great worry and restlessness. The 10 fetters that bind us, fetters are chains or bonds. If you look at it, the way to get rid of these bonds is the path, the mug. And there are people on this path, and there are different stages, the stream enterer, and then the, the Sotapan, and then the Sakadagami, Anagami, and so forth. So the one returner, non-returner, and finally Arahat. So out of all this, at the first step itself, what has to be got rid of is Vicikicca. The three things that have to be got rid of at the first step, not only Vicikicca, there's another one called Silabhata Paramasa, which is rituals, we'll come to that. And then self-identity, a self-view, the self-food. So these three. And to begin with, you have to start sawing at to cut off this Vicikicca doubt. So that just shows the importance of Vicikicca. Because you're not going to get started. We know that you can't start without conviction. And also, this word Vicikicca comes in the teachings somewhere else. There are 5 mental hindrances. We spoke about the psychological hindrances. The 5 mental hindrances that you have heard of, the Pancha Nivarana. The 10 fetters were the Dasa Sangyojana, and now we have the Pancha Nivarana. Vicikicca is one of them. And if you were to, people know that there are Kama Chanda or sensual desires, Vyapada or anger and aversion. Then there is restless and worry, Uddacha, Kujacha. And Vicikicca is doubt, and also Tinamidda, or being lazy, sloth and torpor, to get on with it. So if you have any of these, now look at it if you have Vicikicca, because it is said that the mother of all hindrances is Vicikicca. They are all 5, and very often they act in unison. Vicikicca can, if you have Vicikicca, we already said, didn't we, even from a psychological angle, there is restlessness, indecision. We are swinging between two ends like a pendulum. So there is restlessness coming on, right? Because of Vicikicca. Because of Vicikicca, you are not having that energy. We said that you need in the Anga Sutta, it was told, conviction is necessary if you are to have virya of some effort. You can't. So you have sloth and torpor. So see how Vicikicca acts. So Vicikicca is a very important hindrance. Now things have been, I don't know if it's a bit heavy or boring or whatever. So I like to come up with a very light-hearted, time to do a very light-hearted thing. Ajahn Brahm, something that Ajahn Brahm says about the 5 hindrances. Let me come up with that for a little more relaxed thing. Then let's go on. He shows his 5 fingers and says, here there are 5 fingers. And each is saying, I'm the most important one. So the thumb says, I am the most important. After all, we all know that this movement opponents was what made us man. Man became the name man from Manus, manual, I suppose. We were able to do things because of this. We couldn't use a tool, otherwise, even the ape doesn't have that. Then also we do thumbs up. So the thumb said, I am the most important. Then the index finger said, no, I am the one, wisdom. I point at things and I show what is right. And if you say to lift one finger, it's me. Third finger says, I am the tallest of the lot, so I am the most important. And then the next ring finger says, I have the ring. I have special, important things in your life are marked by me and carried on me. The little one, now Vicikicca is what is implied in this little finger, says yes, but when you put all 5, this is Ajahn Brahm's way of saying this, put all 5, put your hands together in salutation to the Buddha, you can visualize, and of course worshipping all of you, but if you worship the Buddha, say, I am the one who is closest to the Buddha. So Vicikicca was important. Just to say that Vicikicca is not to be considered the fifth and the littlest, and is important and very, very important. Now, so we found Vicikicca in the 10 fetters, and I hope we realized how important it is, because it's among the first to get. You have to start off, you have to get rid of it, otherwise you can't go any further. And then we go to the mental hindrances. Here, there are some, I like to also mention in a sutta, the Sangarava Sutta, where the Buddha speaks to a man who is engaged in water purification. And as usual, the Buddha uses what that any person understands. Best is what he uses as similes. So he uses the pollutants in water for this man to understand these 5 hindrances. And muddied water, which you can't see your face in, is, it clouds your judgment, it's cloudy, you can't see through. So unless there's clarity in the water, that is what doubt, Vicikicca does. Then of course he says, if there's restlessness, the water, there are ripples, and then also the water is agitated, you can't see through. If there is lazy, sloth and torpor, there is moss and various sludge growing in the water, that's also, water is not clean now. Sensual desires are like various colors. So dyes have fallen into the water, and the water is polluted. And anger is, the water is fermenting and bubbling. So basically, I was thinking, even if we place a glass of water to the Buddha, I remember as a student, there was no time to do anything else but just 1 or 2 flowers and the glass. Flowers, I used to think, oh, my body is like this fades. And let my mind be like this glass of water, for it to be colorless without the dyes, cool without anger, calm and still. So I just made up the 5 C's. And then for it to be clean without that sludge and moss, and it to be clear, clarity. But anyway, this was Sangarava Sutta. Buddha has given these 5. And so much for the 5 hindrances that are going to block us and prevent. And we will be looking through misty or foggy, through fog, if you have Vicikicca. So this is why you have to get rid of Vicikicca. Not you, I, all of us. Then we have, it comes up in the Anusayas, 7 Anusayas there are, one of which is Vicikicca. Anusayas are latent tendencies that we all have. Latent tendencies of kama raga, who likes, liking for nice things, pleasant things, sensual things. Bhava raga, wanting to become something, to be somebody, becoming. Then patiga, or anger, and so forth. Then there are 4 others. Vicikicca, doubt is one. Views, ditthi is one. Mana, ego is one. And of course, ignorance, avijja. So these 7 are there. Vicikicca comes in there also and has to come out. We said we come out with Vicikicca first, but remember, Vicikicca is not avijja. Now I'm trying to, this is a good time for us to all see that Vicikicca and doubt and ignorance are 2 different things. So at discussion time, it was easy to, you can't get the 2 mixed up. If you know what I mean, ignorance and doubt. Both are dangerous. Both can make you drink the Dhammika Paniya, you see. But if you don't have any doubt, anyway, we'll come to that. So those are the places that in the Dhamma, in the teachings that Vicikicca is focused on. And let us then come to, but it is also there in the, in the Vipassana, when you go in, we'll come to that in a little while, the practice. Now to overcome, how do we empty our mind of Vicikicca? It is a question of emptying our mind of Vicikicca, getting rid of Vicikicca. And if you think of the opposite of Vicikicca, it is Shraddha, or confidence in this, or conviction on this teaching. That is Shraddha, but that is not blind faith. So how does one do it? One will have to investigate. If one is willing to investigate and then decide for yourself, you have free inquiry. You can get away if you don't want to do, if you find it not convincing. But if you find it, and sometimes when we look around, how it works seems to be what exactly clicks can be very strange. I mean, I have seen, maybe without having ever heard of anything and having every comfort in life. Recently, I met a 21-year-old boy from Norway. And now what made him get attracted? There was no problem. Everything was fine. He was first in class and, he was thinking of becoming a rocket scientist. But then suddenly he felt with every progress, there's still another step to make, another exam, and again I get rewards, and again another. Where does this end? And one day he just came across this theory of anicca and things like that, and impermanence, and he got ordained. I went for that ordination ceremony. He had been here for about more than a year and learned and was convinced that he wanted it. Now, how on earth that happened? So was it his mind? So we can investigate with our mind. Sometimes karma in the past, karma also maybe having a flicker in, flaring these things up. Whatever it is, there has to be, you have to do this. And sometimes because you have gone through sorrows and suffering, people may have turned to it or otherwise. So it's a question of investigating. And if Buddha says free inquiry, when Buddha was asked, what do we believe? He says, you check to see whether being virtuous is good, staying away from intoxicants now, next time stop, whether that you think is going to be of any value to you, or you think that the wise people, they gave a lot of criteria, there is no time to go. Kalama Sutta is not our topic, but he said if the wise people, would they recommend, would they agree with this? You think, how would it agree with me, and things like that, and then decide for yourself. So that is what it is, ehipassiko. The more ehipassiko you do, the less vicikicca you get. That is the fact. That is how inverse relationship between the two. Now, on the other hand, I have been getting a lot of emails even before starting this talk. This morning, somebody had written saying, I won't be able to join. Not somebody I know even. The name wasn't even familiar. It will be 3 a.m. in California. I have a lot of questions. I don't know whether he has put it on chat. I just wrote back saying, put it on chat. Then somebody else says a scientific inquiry is needed for this. Science can't disprove. I'm convinced that science won't be able to disprove anything, because this is a reality. The reality is that there is anicca, dukkha, anatta, whether we like it or not. Anatta meaning it's not in my control, and things are changing. And there is a certain unsatisfactoriness, however lovely things are, then it's more unsatisfactory, because when that ends, not like if something not so lovely was ended. Anyway, science, the basic principle in science, my teachers like Professor Narada Varanasurya, and I saw Professor Lavabarsurya also for a little while, I know they're still there, are here. Now the basic, they were also not science, I mean, we were not scientific, medicine is not the pure science, but in pure science, you will have to reproduce the results. Even in qualitative studies, we'll say, I'd go and do a multi-center. Is there a multi-center study? Has it been, all this? So you can't just say this and that, and therefore it is. So, that science, how can science prove some of these things? Now, for example, my previous life, I can't go back there and come back here and prove it. So, Punarbhava, or a new becoming, can't be proven with the scientific principles. So those are the scientific principles. So science may be able to prove some things. Quantum physics and everything is now showing these is in line with a lot of teachings in the Buddha's teachings. However, everything will not be tested. So there is little point in arguing. At discussion time, it is nice to argue, of course. Free inquiry is what is important. But the two are different. And this, so how is it intelligence that is needed? High intelligence, high level of PhDs. Then the Upasakamma, that old lady who can perhaps just sign her name, has been able to understand. It is emotional intelligence, perhaps. So what is this tool that the Buddha recommends? Yoniso Manasikara, mindfulness. We'll come to that. The first step is in developing confidence or conviction and starting the path or testing out is to investigate, as we said, and then the next thing is to take the three refuges. When you say Buddhang Saranang, or Dhammang Saranang, and Sangham Saranang, it means I have come to the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha for refuge. And you're not going elsewhere. But as time goes on, this has to strengthen. As Vicikicca goes down, the Shraddha goes up and the conviction goes up. So taking the refuge is step number one. Then what happens? What is it you're going to use? We thought intelligence and scientific inquiry alone may not always work. What to be used is the 5 spiritual faculties. Not these eyes and nose and mouth and, those are of course very important to be watching, because that's where the feelings come in and the sorrows and feelings, good and bad, come in. But the 5 spiritual faculties are Shraddha, which is confidence, Virya, which is energy, Shraddha, Virya, Sati, Samadhi, Prajna. So having Sati, mindfulness, and concentration, Samadhi, and then the wisdom. Now, you start with Shraddha and you don't end. True enough, it looks as if you end with Prajna. But as you go on, Shraddha also increases. You can't just go on with more and more Shraddha. That is, sometimes there is a kind of Shraddha which is a bit of a foolish Shraddha. That is called Amulika Shraddha. What you want is a Akaravati Shraddha, which is in balance and with true understanding, not because, not only entirely Shraddha in the heart. That's the type of person who would keep some offering to the Buddha on the lap of the Buddha statue. At the other end, there will be people who say, no, all this is not necessary. It's all in my mind. So it's a balance, right? But once you achieve everything, no doubt you will stop. And finally, the view is that you let go of all this. But anyway, there is Shraddha, Virya, Sati, Samadhi, Prajna. Out of these 5 also, Sati, mindfulness, is the main method, the Ekayano Maggo, the one sure method. And in that there is a thing called Yoniso Manasikara, which is wise attention. Watching your, in meditation, you start. So basically it comes to, now we are in the zone of, we have listened, we have contemplated, and now we are in the zone of the 3rd practice. We are not quite practicing, but we are talking about the practice anyway. That is now mindfulness. And that mindfulness is being very watchful, calm. First of all, you're calm. Because unless you're calm, that water is now, you can see the bottom of the pool only if you're calm. And you're looking at yourself and you're seeing the kind of thoughts that come to you and you're beginning to understand yourself. And as you watch, they fade away. That's because you can be able to catch the other thing. No, before that, we are able to catch the anger as it comes, catch the greed as it comes, catch the doubt as it comes. That is called, if I'm looking at the time, it's 5:30, I think I can go on a little more. That is called Yoniso Manasikara. Yoniso, from the place of birth itself, your mind is there, you are catching it early. It is somewhat akin to emotional intelligence. Not that Upasakam also had emotional intelligence. She can say, I am getting angry, I can stop myself. because she knows that this is the path and that she has been trying. It's not high PhD intelligence or scholarly intelligence. So in other words, how does one get rid of Vicikicca? Shraddha, yes, but Yoniso Manasikara is the practice. In fact, the Buddha has said that some very beautiful sentences, that nothing worse than Ayoniso Manasikara, opposite that, for risen doubts to increase and unarisen doubts to arise. Nothing like being unmindful, and that also be without wise reflection. So if there is wise reflection, that is what is wanted. So the path is meditation, and that through samadhi meditation, no doubt, but primarily the mindfulness meditation. Samadhi, if you have got a lot of samadhi, it helps with the mindfulness. Not necessarily though, but it will help. And that some degree of samadhi has to be there. So we come to that, and the Buddha says, in the Ahara Sutta, he says, this what feeds doubt. What feeds doubt is being Ayoniso Manasikara. If you can get rid of doubt by being Yoniso Manasikara. Now, he says another thing like this, he explains. If you look at pleasant things and you are unmindful, Ayoniso, unmindful, you will begin to like those things and get sensual desire. Similarly, he says to get rid of doubt, this is his recipe. The recipe is, look at unpleasant things. Think of somebody who died. Think of somebody who is ill, terminally ill, or whatever the calamity has arisen. And look at it with Yoniso Manasikara. Look at it with wise reflection. Look at unpleasant things with wise reflection. And that is the remedy to getting rid of Vicikicca. So that is in the Ahara Sutta. Then there is another one called Kutuhala Sala Sutta. Kutuhala Sala sounds like a debating hall. So Vachagotta the wanderer, now we have come across this Vachagotta several times. Now once again he enters. Vachagotta the wanderer, who later becomes an Arahat, he comes and tells the Buddha, now in this debating hall, there are various people who come, and the others, all these other spiritual leaders, where there were a lot of spiritual leaders in the time of the Buddha. There was, we have heard of these Ajita Kesa Kambala and Sanjaya Bellatta Putta and Nigantanath Putta, and we learned all this. The twice when we were children. These people come and some very devout, spiritually advanced person passes away. People ask, where did he go? And he will say, he's in such and such a place, such and such a place. But when you ask Gautama, you say, he has got rid of his Vicikicca, he has got rid of his tanha, his greed, he has got rid of anger, he has got rid of things. So he has got rid of all the sustenance. So he is not here. So it's like Ahara Sutta, the sustenance, we have to also get rid of. It's a bit of a deep one. But so then this person says, right, look at this fire. Fire is being sustained. Now Vachagotta says, this fire is being sustained by the wood or whatever that fuel that was there. Cow dung or whatever that was burning. He says, when that finishes, the fire goes. So that is your sustenance theory, cause and effect. But how is it that this fire can catch a tree far away and set that alight? How did that happen? There was no sustenance. Then the Buddha says, the wind took it. Wind was the sustenance. Had the wind not been there, it wouldn't have gone to that tree. So there is a cause and effect. So we have to, this conviction on cause and effect. And looking at things in this way is, now getting rid of Vicikicca is, in the Bojjhanga, is that state of Dhamma Vijaya. That is also said by that time. Now, first of all, when will one get Vicikicca completely lost? In the Sotapanna phase, the 8 Purisa Puggala, the 8 Arya Puggalas, are the Sotappana Magga and the Sotappana Pala. You have got come to fruition. Pala, you're on the path, and that. So it's only when you get to Sotappana Pala that you have completely lost Vicikicca. So, and what is more, when you look at the Vipassana Jnana, the 7 stages of purification, which is fairly, which starts with Sila Visuddhi, you know, the purity, and the mind. I won't put you off. Therefore, there are 7 stages: Sila Visuddhi, Chitta Visuddhi, Ditti Visuddhi, about views, and then the 4th one only, the Kanka Vitarana Visuddhi, that doubts are again coming in you. You have seen the mind separately, you have seen the body, you realize this is mind and matter and all that, you have come a long way. But then doubt comes. Where did the mind start? Where did this start? What are you expected to do? Have yoniso manasikara, watch that doubt. And as you watch the doubt, so now all this is with skeptical doubt that we are using, an inquiring doubt. Now I'm finally, because we had come to end this, skeptical doubt is a good doubt. I don't know why they call Vicikicca skeptical doubt. Skeptical doubt is an inquiring doubt. A better word would have been spiritual doubt. This is my humble view. I have no right to, I'm just saying this for consideration. Skeptical doubt, without skepticism, you can't, that's inquiring mind, but of course not to go on being skeptical. Now the Buddha has also said that there are 6 type of characters. Of course, we are not just 6 types, we have many, but that as per temperament, the predominant temperament, we could be 6 types. We could be the angry types, the dosa charita, or the raga charita with a lot of greed and sensual desire, or moha ignorant. Now those 3 are pretty bad, but of course there is always a place for he recommends different meditations for the different people, because in the absence of the Buddha was there, he says, all right, you do this, you do that, because he can see exactly what we want. But now we have to self-assess ourselves and see where we are. Then there are 3 others, buddhi charita, whether we are highly intelligent, and we are going for these scientific theories and all these things, or whether we are the vitakka charita, for ever questioning, cynical doubt, saying, there is always something wrong with this, I am going to check this. You are going on ruminating in the same place and you won't go very far unless you put that right. And then there's a saddha charita, who is got saddha, but saddha alone, I said, is not enough, you have to go. So there are 6 charitas, which means that there is space for individual improvement, you see, for everyone. I like to end very nice somewhere here now. So how is Vicikicca lost? Vicikicca we get rid of through yoniso manasikara. I want to repeat that. Vicikicca is completely lost only at Sotappana, when it is an unshakable Vicikicca. Otherwise, of course, you say, I'll give you a pair of shoes for your children. These days, there are a lot of economic problems. You come with us, and then you go. That is when there is no so much of Vicikicca, right? No confidence in what they are already having. So, of course, the other things come priority. So that is how things are. You fall with confidence tricksters, fraudsters, and that is how it is. Now, is there no protection in Buddhism? Have you got to go on your knees and, without that and going to somebody, is there no protection? Of course, there is protection in the paritas. What are the 2 strong ways in protection? One, lot of paritas are saying metta. Do metta and kanda pirita, karaniya metta pirita, they were told to protect people. The monks were scared in the jungles and they were told, say karaniya metta, and they got over they not just say it like enlightened parrots, as Ajahn Sumedho says, with meaning. Paritas had to be told with meaning. The other big area of paritas, the 2 ways they do it is, the other paritas are, by the power of this truth, may you get well. By the power of this truth, may your problems go away. Now that is very powerful. So I would like to at this time say that, come up with something to show how by the power of the truth, Buddhanubhavena, by the power of the Buddha's wisdom, by the wisdom of enlightenment. We are not talking about the physical Buddha here, but the power of the Buddha's wisdom, which is still there. The physical Buddha may not be there. By the Dhammanubhavena, Sanghanubhavena, something will go off. Now we have that stanza. I want to just show this, what Silabbata Paramasa is. Now, when Vicikicca goes, we have to get rid of three, Vicikicca, Silabbata Paramasa, and self-identity, Sakkaya Ditthi. Silabbata Paramasa is, we say, rituals, right? Everything, vows, anything. That very well-known thing, we have all heard, I believe, at least Sri Lankans would have heard. Yandunni Nittang Avamangalancha. Nimitta is a omen or some sort of a sign, some sort of a, so Yandun Nimittang Avamangalancha, this sign of some bad thing to come. Avamangalancha, not Mangala, Avamangala. Yandun Nimi Avamangala. Yo chapa nako, chapa chapa, the gecko saying chapa chapa chapa, that's bad. These are the Silabbata Paramasa, the silly beliefs. Yo chapa na, Sakunafsa Saddo. Sakuna is a bird, a cry of a bird being an omen. So, Yamdun Nimittang Navamangalamcha Yocha Panako Sakunafsa Saddo. The birds cry. Papagaho. Otherwise, you say, that's a Papagraha. That is some malefic planetary position. That's why this is going wrong. Papagaho. No, this is all wrong beliefs. Silabbata Paramasa. Papagaho. Dussupinang. That's a bad dreams. Dussupinang akantang. I don't know what akantang is. Buddhanubhavena vinasanentu. Then again, Dhammanubhavena vinasanentu. Sanghanubhavena. So by the power of this truth, by getting convinced on these things and getting rid of your Vicikicca, which is your doubts, automatically your Silabbata Paramasa will also be leaving. That is how it is. I can see, at least I believe so. And so the antidote is Saddha, Ehipassiko, and Yoniso Manasikara, and with Vicikicca going, Silabbata Paramasa will also leave. And with that, I think I will stop. And may we all get rid of Vicikicca with Buddha Anubhavena, Dhamma Anubhavena, Sangha Anubhavena, the power of the truth. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And thank you for your patient listening.